have resolutions adjusting the 2022-2023 adopted budget appropriations for Lincoln County. The creation of the Community Enhancement Projects Fund presented by Christina Scherer, our Finance and Accounting Director. Welcome, Christina.
Morning.
Good morning. And I did prepare a quick presentation. Hopefully we can get, there we go. And with your indulgence, I do want to just do a little bit of quick refresher on budget adjustments. We haven't done one yet this year. Or maybe we have, maybe I just don't remember. It's been that kind of year. But in any case, I just wanted to walk you in the audience through a little bit about budget adjustments, how they work, what the process is. So from a refresher standpoint, we adopt the budget once a year. It's in June. It starts in July. At that point, that adoption of that budget is basically the county's authority to spend. So that's you telling your department directors, go forth, use our resources to accomplish our goals. And so that's what this spend manage budget bubble is. And because we do budget prep, as you know, we're doing budget prep right now for fiscal 24. We do it well in advance. There are always things that come up between the time we prepare the budget, the time we adopt it, and the time we actually start to deploy our programs and resources. So we always have to adjust. It's generally not a big deal. I mean, this is a normal part of the budget process. So we can go through this spend manage, adjust, and spend manage again. We can go through this multiple times. And in fact, I will tell you, this is not the last budget adjustment for this year that you will see. We still have many more to come. And then at some point, which is basically right now, we start looking at where we're at and we prepare for the next year and we just do it all over again. So that's what this cycle is for. I also wanted to take this opportunity to remind everyone about the roles that we all play in the budget. Obviously, you as the Board of Commissioners, your role is the primary role. It really is authorization. That should be the first thing there. But you review budgets, you oversee them, you make sure that everything's the way is consistent with your goals and objectives. But your role is that of authorization. Department directors, and I'm going to jump all the way over to the other side, they are responsible for executing programs. So they utilize resources in the form of staff and purchases to execute programs. They assess the needs of those programs. They manage the budgets they have. They manage the spending they have. And when they need an adjustment to the budget, they're the ones that initiate it. And that's something that I think sometimes gets lost. Because you guys authorize, department heads initiate, finance is kind of that person in the middle that kind of marries the two together so that we make sure all of our legal obligations are checked off, that we've done all the proper filings, that we have all of the financial structures necessary to ensure compliance with grants and audits and internal controls and stuff. So as a matter of internal control, we don't actually initiate these things. So even though you see me here today bringing these budget adjustments, it's important for you to understand that I'm not here on my own behalf. I'm here on behalf of the department heads who requested these budget adjustments. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, you're the messenger.
I am the messenger. I'm the person in the middle.
I will say I really liked the logo you use for department. It's very appropriate.
Oh,
Yeah.
So yes, my role is record keeping. I use the baseball analogy a lot. We're not the player, finance. We're not the players. We're not the coaches, and we're not the umpires. We're the scorekeepers. And so our role really is coordination and record keeping. And I'm going to stop with your indulgence at this moment. I want to make sure I recognize that there's a couple people here that help me keep track of this because there's a number of these budgets out there. Deanna and Renee, would you please stand up? So Deanna Carell, you're all familiar with her. She's my assistant finance director. You're all familiar, but you may not have had the opportunity to meet Renee. Renee is our budget and GL finance analyst. And so she's really the one that's helping us work through all of the details on this. And she's doing a lot of our OpenGov implementation for us. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize them.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Key concepts, I just wanted again to kind of refresh, and I know you guys are all familiar with this, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. This budget, everybody thinks of the individual department budgets that you see in this book as the budget. But the legal budget is actually an appropriation, and that's way in the back of the book. And it's actually at a much higher level than the detail pages you see. So an appropriation is a legally adopted budget. We operate our operational budget at a much lower level, at the fund department level, but our appropriation levels are really where we're trying to make these budget adjustments. Okay, so we have two different kinds of appropriations. We have program appropriations, which we use in the general fund. So that's general government, public safety, community services. And basically, it's just an accumulation of department budgets into a summarized appropriation. In all the other funds, we use category appropriations. So here again, we summarize all of the departments within a fund at the category level: personal services, materials and services, capital outlay, transfers, and so forth. And those are the category appropriations. A supplemental budget this is straight out of the Oregon Budget Manual. It's budget adjustment to meet unexpected needs or appropriate revenues not anticipated. That is key, because that is almost always why we do supplementals, so we get more money. We either have budget carryover from previous years for grants that we didn't budget, so we need to reappropriate. We get new grants that we didn't know about, so we need to appropriate for that. So that's the bulk of what we do in supplemental budgets. A hearing requirement is triggered because of the three main categories. If you increase a fund expenditures by more than 10%, if you create a new fund, or if you create a new category within a fund. So for instance, if you didn't have a capital outlay fund or category, but you did have materials and services and personal services, you don't have that capital outlay and suddenly you need to spend capital outlay, then that triggers a budget hearing to make that happen. Public notices are required for public hearings. We did do that public notice last week. It was have that on there on the next page. We did do that. Let me go back. Resolution transfers. This is something that you're going to see a lot more of these, and we're going to have some conversations about how we want to handle those. That's basically moving money within appropriations. So for instance, if this is probably not a good example, but it is an example. If you wanted to shift appropriation from public safety to general government, that's called an appropriation transfer. Okay. So now we're here to the point where we actually are the reason for being here today. So we have 5 budget adjustments on the agenda today. 3 of them require the public hearing. So when I'm done with this little talk, we'll have you open up the public hearing and open up for comment on these 3 items. So in a public hearing, of course, the public must be given an opportunity to comment. We did publish on the 10th in the Newport News Times so that everyone knows not only that we are having a budget hearing, but what about. So there's a form and it showed the appropriations that we were modifying and so forth. So today's adjustments, Fund 102, the Economic Development Fund. This is where this was triggered because the Economic Development Fund did not have a capital outlay component. It didn't have an appropriation for capital outlay. We're establishing one. And so that's what this hearing is for. Fund 105 is establishing a new fund. This is a fund that we are creating to handle special revenues and programs. They're associated with the general fund, but they're dedicated funds. And we want to try and make it so that we can track color of money a little bit better. So we've created this fund to track a lot. This is primarily grants and outside assistance funds that we're creating. The first department in there is for GIS, and it's for the collection of assistance for GIS mapping. Fund 210 is the solid waste district. And this is the hearing was triggered on this one because it's an increase of more than 10% of total fund expense. It's kind of coincidental, but we actually have an example of every single reason why you need to have a public hearing. So those three are all public hearing. The other two budget adjustments we have in the general fund and in the capital projects fund do not technically require a budget hearing. Since we're here, there's no reason you can't hear comment on it, but you're not obligated to. Okay.
Okay.
And that's all I have as far as my presentation.